And there's an author called James Clear. In his book, Automatic Habits, he talked about having that when you do consistent habits of the same nature, you find that you have the same results. But if you push past that, anything is possible.
Hey everybody, my name is Angie Murenga. You're watching Just Angie. It's Mwangi Monday, where we discuss all things governance. We've been doing a series on leading in a crisis, or even leading through a crisis. And this all came from the sector Ecclesia, the marketplace. Under the Marketplace Ecclesia Accelerator, they had a webinar, and it was about leading in crisis. They had an East African panel, which I loved, represented from Uganda, from Tanzania, and from Kenya. And they had an amazing conversation, and the link will be shared just in case you want to see more, hear more, learn more. The link is available for you to click. And I'm having a conversation with Kio and Jackie here in the studio. So hallelujah, this is so amazing. So it's now about habits, structures, and systems when you're leading through crisis. Take it away.
Thank you, Pastor Angie. So last week we talked about growth mindset and the stretching and what you need to do to be more productive and create more value. And what's very core in that is your habits. And what is a habit? So a habit is something, a routine or behavior that you do automatically. You know, that it's like your default setting. And so from the crisis, we found that you've had to push past some of the default settings and your habits. And there's an author called James Clear. In his book, Automatic Habits, he talked about having that when you do consistent habits of the same nature, you find that you have the same results. But if you push past that, anything is possible. And he's of the line of thought that when you have your habits, they're tied to your goals. What are your actionable goals? But part of that is the systems and processes that help establish those goals and that foundation for you. So it's more about how can I think differently and how can I impart differently. Like for example, in a business setting, if I want to improve on my customer service with my team internally. So if I find that I need to create a culture of more information sharing, does it mean that I have to do more mentor-mentee relationships between senior and junior staff just to help push the envelope? And you find that very slowly that you have a spirit and a habit of striving for excellence. And that way, of course, results in a better product and a better service that you're giving to your people. And he also talks about not smiting the small beginnings. And in Zechariah, I think Zechariah 4 verse 10.
It says, do not despise the day of small beginnings.
Exactly. For the Lord rejoices or celebrates when the work begins. So it is in the beginning, it is in the challenging of yourself where you find you actually push the envelope. And I like what he talked about that when you have a goal, relates to your desired result, whereas the system and the structures relates to how you achieve.
It's the how.
The how. And you find that today there's been such a hunger for content, hunger for learning, people wanting to acquire new skills and talents. And what does it mean? What is the filter? What is our framing? What do we look like in terms of just pushing past and creating healthy habits? It can even be like maybe trying to go on a diet or trying to work out, which has been quite disruptive at home when you think about it. But what are those deliberate steps that you're taking? And I want to take it back to our discussion last week when we introduced Joseph into our character into this discussion. It's because you find that he was very deliberate. He was very purposeful. And you see how he actually ran an entire nation. That required systems and processes. And he was actually impactful in those particular ways. And he was able to deliver that even people noticed his spirit of excellence. So that is, daily in terms of just leading in yourself and others within your space, try to also just cultivate healthy habits and very constructive habits that will help also just push the envelope, and you'll see a manifestation of amazing results.
And that's amazing, because when you said go beyond, I could see like this deep blue sea, just go beyond here, because I think that's another thing that the pandemic has helped some people do, is go beyond yourself. Go beyond your own limitations, go beyond your thought process, go beyond what you thought was possible, and you're suddenly in another realm of possibilities and doing amazing things.
And I think from the marketplace perspective, going beyond in that aspect is looking at maybe worst case scenario in your businesses, right? Because sometimes we can get very comfortable with how things are going. And when you're comfortable and things are going good, hiya, something's coming, you know. So think about those things and also put structures in place for that. Put policies in place for that. Let people constantly be thinking like, if we did this differently, if we did this, you know, from this perspective, like get everybody's intelligences about particular scenarios, yeah. But at the same time, we need to be practical about some of these things, right? We need to do trainings about them as well. So we gather more knowledge on some of these scenarios. I know, like at us at our workplace, every project that we get into, we have to do a risk matrix, and you look at all the risks, yeah, and then you also have like a number towards them. Is it high? Is it low? You know, the possibility of it. And I'm just going to give you an example, yeah, of a project that we're doing now. So we have like sheep, yeah, we're just rearing sheep for, you know, for sale. But at the same time, they're going to go out and they're going to eat the grass. But there could be pests, yeah, there could be snakes, you know. So that's a risk. Have we thought about if they're out there and snakes come, what are we going to do to mitigate that? Yeah. So what do we have in place for that to mitigate? Yeah. And so those are the things now. I mean, it's a very simple example, but in your line of business, what are the risks in the activities that you're doing? Because then that gives you the worst case scenario and you can think beyond that. I mean, no one ever thought we'd get into a pandemic. And I don't think you can be fully prepared for anything, you know, but at least it gets your mind thinking from, you know, a comfortable perspective to a perspective of what if this happens? Am I prepared? Who are the contacts that I have? Am I part of an association that, you know, in the same industry where we can share ideas, where maybe some people have gone through something that I have not even thought about at all, and maybe I need to bring it into my space, yeah? So that way then you're more prepared, I would say, and if something like this happens, then you're ready to think on your feet, yeah? So you're always thinking, your mind is always thinking of, you know, scenarios, different scenarios. And I think that's really healthy and important.
Maybe just to add to what Kio talked about, she talked about preparation. And one of my favorite authors, Stephen Covey, in his book, The Eighth Habit, he talks about one of his greatest learnings has been to make a new contribution, you have to make a whole new preparation. And that has been very evident, for we've seen many amazing ideas that have come out of this whole pandemic. You know, yes, there's been sadness and devastation, but also on the flip side, there has been, innovation and, you know, rebirth and so many new things. So definitely there's so much room to make new preparations and just move forward in that as well.
And I think even new thinking, you know, like now I think I'm an Instagram shopper, you know, I would never have been. I have to go to the shop, touch the fabric, try it on. I had very many arguments in my head. But no, everything now comes to the comfort. I shop, I come, it comes to where I am. The payment system is just perfect because now you can pay via M-Pesa, my things. You know, life is quite a lot more easier than we had thought it would be. And maybe in my mind, I'd never thought that I would be an online shopper ever. But now the crisis has forced me to get into that habit. I think the other thing is some of the negative maybe habits is how we can spend a lot of time on your phone. But thank God they've also countered that by putting that thing that tells you how much time you spent on your phone. And I'm like, oh my God, bury the phone, get away. So we can, I think the habits and systems and structures will help us put habits in place that are healthy, but also be able to counter the unhealthy ones, like I was telling you earlier. There's a tendency also, maybe in this crisis, for people to overwork because there's no travel time. There's no travel time, so you don't have to be somewhere and then you have to leave at a certain place. So some people can really overdo it. And I think also we're pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries a bit too much. So you find yourself taking calls at normal times you wouldn't. So I think these habits and structures and systems and values will help you, you know, create your also boundaries, you know, so that you're not overdoing it, you're not always working. I think we were forced to buy seats. We had to buy, you know, like office chairs because a lot of people are having back problems as well. But some of the nice habits is people's homes have changed. I met a lady who told me she sells building materials. She told me 2020 was the year. I'm looking at her like, what? She said people are extending their houses. You know, they've been in their spaces. They've actually sat and said, this space is not working. So she told me people have extended their houses just like furniture. People have sold so much furniture, so many like gadgets, you know. People have made their spaces more beautiful, more adaptable. You know, they've been stretched, so they're stretching out the home as well. So I just love it. There's so much that's happening in the pandemic, and so much that has come out. Like you said, there've been bad things, but there's been a lot of good things. And I also sense that people have found themselves. There's a way that people have found themselves in a way that they would not have, I don't think it would have been possible without this, shall I say, moment of time stopping. Like this pause, this reflection, this like God hit stop, you know? One of the other things I was watching Bishop TDJ showing the popular like beaches empty, you know? Squares that are full of people, zero streets, you know. It's like, and he made a joke. It was so funny. He said, it's like God said everybody should go to their room. Go to your room now, you know, because things that was impossible to imagine, to even fathom. And then we had to create new habits, new systems, new structures, you know. People who live alone had to start having pets. I mean, I don't know, I could go on and on, but
but also you see that you know, there's a lot of latent talent within us, you know, talent that is not being used, and there's probably just because we're not intentional about it, or we don't have those opportunities, or because we're used to living a certain way. We go to work, you know, like our routines, but now everything has just been thrown off. And you'll find that people are like, you know what, those things that I really want to enjoy, let me put them out right now. You'll find people have started cooking. You know, they've become, you know, chefs. I mean, things that they've never really done before. Carpentry. I mean, people are doing beautiful works out there, you know, and painting like Eric. I mean, such beautiful works are coming out now from, you know, from just this pandemic. You know, it would have probably never have come out, but it's coming out now. So I think there are new ideas, new talents being showcased, and so, which is beautiful also.
And this is the whole reason why we do Mwangi Monday. Is like, you know, sometimes you can be in a situation where you think you're in a crisis and you're alone and there's no way out, but we want to show you that there is a way out, you know, like you don't have to be stuck. There can be a crisis, but there's leading yourself through that crisis. And how do I get out on the other side into that realm which Jackie painted so well, of possibilities, of endless possibilities. God bless you. See you next Monday for the fourth and final part.